So we stopped at the verse 45. Swe swe karmanyabhiratah samsiddhim labhate narah. Swakarmanyaratah siddhim yatha vindati tat shrenu. Listen to that, how man gets to the kind of success or realization following his own natural way of working. Shubindu translates it in this way: a man who is intent on his own natural work attains perfection. Listen thou, how perfection is won by him who is intent on his own natural work. This is the biggest secrecy, yes, of the Gita. Can we attain the supreme perfection, samsiddhim, by following our own natural way of being and working? It's a big question, because in the post-Gita philosophy, this would not be the answer. You will have to leave it to become something unnatural. Yatah pravrittir bhutanam yena sarvamidam tatam svakarmanatam abhyarchya siddhim vindati manavah. He from whom all beings originate, by whom all this universe is pervaded, by worshipping him by his own work, a man reaches perfection. So there is the work becomes like a worship of some kind, worship for perfection. And whom we worship the one who originated all this manifestation, and by whom it is maintained and sustained. So if we find that connection through work, we may arrive at some siddhi, to our fullest perfection possible. It's actually unimaginable to us. We can only just philosophize around it. But truly speaking, there is a way. We have still some time to try. So work becomes the worship of the Lord. Work itself, somewhere Mother speaks about this, yeah? Work as the worship, as the means by which you can adore the divine. And I can only imagine that it is possible. One can feel that it is true. But in that moment of time, one should remember and offer. Yes, this is the formula. Remember that this is for the divine, and offer to the divine whatever you do. Because whatever you do, you should do anyhow. So, because you are a natural being, you have to maintain your body, maintain your living, and so on. There is nothing wrong about it, only it has to be offered. Here there is a long footnote, maybe I should read it. To he, who is he here? The Gita's philosophy of life and works is that all proceeds from the divine existence, the transcendent and universal spirit. All is a veiled manifestation of the Godhead, Vasudeva. Yato pravriti bhutanam, yana sarvamidam tatam. And to unveil the immortal within and in the world, to dwell in unity with the soul of the universe, to rise in consciousness, knowledge, will, love, spiritual delight, to oneness with the Supreme Godhead, to live in the highest spiritual nature with individual and natural being, delivered from shortcomings and ignorance, and made a conscious instrument For the works of the divine Shakti is the perfection of which humanity is capable, and the condition of immortality and freedom. Everything in one sentence. Yes? The whole vision, the whole philosophy in one sentence. But how is this possible when in fact we are enveloped in natural ignorance? The soul shut up in the prison of ego, overcome, beset, hammered, and molded by the environment, mastered by the mechanism of nature, cut off from our hold on the reality of our own secret spiritual force. Now here we come. The whole the whole problem comes up finally in the second sentence. The answer is that all this natural action, however, now enveloped in a veiled and contrary working, still contains the principle of its own evolving freedom and perfection. That's what is known as rhythm, the dynamic truth. There is some truth is emerging from all those, obstacles and contrary workings. A Godhead is seated in the heart of every man and is the Lord of this mysterious action of nature. And though this spirit of the universe, this one who is all, seems to be turning us on the wheel of the world as if mounted on the machine by the force of Maya, shaping us in our ignorance as the porter shapes a pot on the wheel, as though we were a fabrique by some skillful mechanical principle. Yet is this spirit our own greatest self, and it is according to the real idea, the truth of ourselves, that which is growing in us, finding always new and more adequate forms in birth after birth, in our animal and human and divine life, in that which we were, that which we are, that which we shall be. It is in accordance with this inner soul truth that, as our opened eyes will discover, we are progressively shaped by this spirit within us in its all-wise omnipotence. This machinery of ego, this tangled complexity of the three gunas, mind, body, life, emotion, desire, struggle, thought, aspiration, endeavor, this locked interaction of pain and pleasure, sin and virtue, striving and success and failure, soul and environment, myself and others, is only the outward imperfect form taken by a higher spiritual force in me, which pursues through its vicissitudes the progressive self-expression of the divine reality and greatness. I am secretly in spirit and shall overtly become in nature. This action contains in itself the principle of its own success, the principle of Svabhava and Swadharma. Quite a powerful passage. So,
yeah, excuse me. I was just going to say thank you so much for just giving me the blessing of reading this. That's That makes me feel so much better about my life.
Yes, everybody feels better that it was not just a waste of time or something.
Yes.
It was just the way how we had to learn something about ourselves and find our place in this manifestation in the future.
Yes.
Yes, everything will be counted. All our failures are actually steps on the way towards the truth. So we have to embrace them, to welcome them, as it were, to be happy with the obstacles. Yes. Right. Yeah, it's kind of beautiful that this divine exists and uses us and everything what nature does for that purpose. So here, the next one is a very famous shloka which is constantly quoted. Shreyan svadharmo vigunach paradharmat svanushthitat svabhavaniyatam karma kurvan na apnoti kilbisham. There is na here hidden. It could be lost and then it will be misread. Better, Shreyan. Better is one's own law of works, svadharma, though in itself faulty, viguna, or that which does not have any specific qualities. Yeah? Than an alien law well wrought out, paradharmat svanushthitat, than any other dharma of the other person well followed or well realized. Better to follow one's own dharma, though it leads to no specific achievements or realizations or qualities, than to follow the dharma of the other in the perfect way. Interesting, huh? Because the whole idea of our living here is that we can fake the personality, yeah? Fake it till you make it. So we learned to mimic, um, the whole behaviorism in psychology is telling us that with certain behavior, a certain mannerism, we can pretend to be somebody else and will be that somebody else for others, so to say. So we have this split personality. We are, truly speaking, are constantly fighting with our presentation of ourselves to others and our own needs and of development. So can you imagine they are matched, the outer behavior with inner needs, that you don't pretend to be anyone. You're just who you are. It is such a relief, such a truth. But we were trained from our childhood to pretend to be someone good, someone caring. Yes, of course. Yes, I love you more, and all that. We are so much already in that groove of pretense, and so we don't even know what is true me. We lost that kind of spark or that sense. And that's why we are all suffering and going to the psychologists every day, paying a lot of money for some kind of consultation. Somebody should listen to us, who I am inside. That the whole life is a mismatch with me inside. So thank you for listening. At least someone saying nothing, just listening. Oh, God, a relief. So, of course, so many diseases, so many disorders, and so on. So, better to follow one's own small dharma, but one's own, than some well established dharma of the other. In other words, do not pretend. Be, as Mother said. So, So svabhava niyatam karma kurvan na apnoti kilbisham. The one who does the work, the action, in accordance with one's own svabhava is not reaching to kilbisham. And kilbisham is a strange word. It can be translated as sin or imperfection or weakness. This is the thing, weakness. One does not fall into the lap of weakness, does not become weak. Interesting, yeah? Why we weaken ourselves because of that kind of pretense constant. Sahajam, there is also a footnote on one's own nature. It's a longish, let us read it. It is also very powerful. Well, not so long as the previous one. The jiva, the way to follow one's own svabhava, is in self-expression a portion of Purushottama. This is a misprint. Purushottama, of the supreme. Yeah? Beyond being and non-being, there is a supreme person. And jiva, our soul, is self-expression or portion of that supreme individual personality beyond, or the divine. He represents in nature the power of the Supreme Spirit. He is, in his personality, that power. He brings out in an individual existence the potentialities of the soul of the universe. And it seems that maybe my note is very small in this orchestra, in this symphony. It is not kind of noted, not noticeable, not perceived enough, but it is absolutely necessary for the manifestation. Yeah? So if I don't play that note and I start playing some other notes and some other arias which are not mine, I am spoiling the whole, manifestation in some way. This jiva itself is spirit and not the natural ego. The spirit and not the form of ego is our reality and inner soul principle. The true force of what we are and can be is there in that higher spiritual power. And the mechanical maya of the three gunas is not the inmost and fundamental truth of its movements. It is only a present executive energy and apparatus of lower convenience, a scheme of outward exercise and practice. This is Prakriti. Prakriti will follow the soul. She will create the consequences for the soul, the conditions, the means, the materials, the instruments of knowledge. She will do it if the soul demands. But the soul may pretend to follow some, more attractive proposition of dharma somewhere from outside, and then lose that opportunity to make the nature work for the divine. This is the secret why we have to follow our own dharma. The spiritual nature which has become this multiple personality in the universe, Paraprakriti, Jiva Bhuta, is the basic stuff of our existence. All the rest is lower derivation and outer formation from a highest hidden activity of the spirit. And in nature, each of, there's some misprint here, don't know what it is, each of us most probably has a principle and will of our own becoming. Each soul is a force of self-consciousness that formulates an idea of the divine in it and guides by that its action and evolution, its progressive self-finding, its constant varying self-expression, its apparently uncertain but secretly inevitable growth to fullness. That is our svabhava, our own real nature. That is our truth of being, which is finding now only a constant partial expression in our various becoming in the world. The law of action determined by this svabhava is our right law of self-shaping function working our svadharma. That's why liberalism is winning, democracy is winning. Why? Because the freedom of choice of each individual to find his own right position in manifestation has to be maintained, acknowledged. It cannot be suppressed by some idea of somebody, wanting better for you. No, you will have to be part of it. This is Sri Aurobindo's support for individualism, whatever it may be, even egoistic, even, failing to fulfill its purpose. Still, it is better than without it. Yeah? And then, the next shloka. Sahajam karma kaunteya sadosham api natyajet sarvarambha hi doshena dhumenagnir ivavrataha. The inborn work or son of Kunti, though defective, ought to be not to be abandoned, ought not to be abandoned. All actions, indeed, in the three gunas, indeed are clouded by defects as fire by smoke. So nature will make it smoky, not clear, defective. Actually, on this we have also the whole idea of Ayurveda built, yes? All the doshas, because the distortions which we inherited are inevitable. You cannot be totally perfectly born individual. You have a certain preferences which you have to follow somehow. It's your instrument. It's like this. It's an imperfect instrument. And still, it doesn't mean that you have to abandon it altogether. You can use it. So I'm coming back to the text. Sahajam. Sahaja is an interesting word. It's natural, inborn, born together. Sahajam karma kaunteya. So the natural action of kaunteya. Sadosham api. Even together with dosha. Those doshas of Ayurveda, with mistakes indeed. Not yet. One should never leave. One should not leave one's own inborn action, even if it is imperfect, a lot full of mistakes. Sarvarambha hi doshena dhumenagnir ivavrataha. Because all the beginnings, all the actions which started are starting with doshas, with mistakes. The same as fire is starting to burn from the smoke. It doesn't flame immediately, It is smoky. It needs time to flame in the pure way. Makes sense, no? There are footnotes here. The inborn work, sahajam karma, number one. the practical basis in ancient times come to be their hereditary principle. A man's social function and position were no doubt determined originally, as they are still, in freer, less closely ordered communities by environment, occasion, birth, and capacity. But as they are set in a more fixed stratification, his rank came practically to be regulated by birth, mainly or alone, and in the later system of caste birth came to be the sole rule of status. We spoke about this quite a lot, yes? That it became conventional because it was the only way to recognize to which caste or to which varna one belongs. If I am born in the family of a worker or a priest, I become a priest, yeah? Because I kind of see what my father and what does all the time from my childhood. So the son of Brahmin is always a Brahmin in status, though he may have nothing of the typical Brahmin qualities or character. No intellectual training or spiritual experience or religious worth or knowledge, no connection whatever with the right function of this class, of his class, no Brahminhood in his work, and no Brahminhood in his nature even. And this is what Krishna did. He mixed varnas, jatis. And by mixing jatis, he actually spoiled the whole system, which was very clear to Arjuna, that who is born in the family of Kshatriya is Kshatriya. He has to be, maybe he's not Kshatriya anymore, maybe he's Brahmin, or maybe he's Vaishya, or even Shudra. And this is interesting because it is the time in which we live. The recognition of the true meaning, inner meaning, has to be done by ourselves. We have to discover who we are and what we are here for. So this was an inevitable evolution because the external signs are the only ones which are easily and conveniently determinable, and birth was the most handy and manageable in an increasingly mechanized, complex, and conventional social order. It's quite obvious. For a time, the possible disparity between the hereditary fiction and the individual real inborn character and capacity was made up or minimized by education and training. But eventually, this effort ceased to be sustained, and the hereditary convention held absolute rule. The ancient lawgivers, while recognizing the hereditary practice, insisted that quality, character, and capacity were the one sound and real basis, and that without them, the hereditary social status became an unspiritual falsehood because it had lost its true significance. This actually created all these revolutionary new religions, such as Buddhism, yeah. And Gita herself is of that kind. The Gita too, as always, founds its thought on the inner significance. It speaks indeed in one verse of the work born with a man, sahajam karma, but this does not in itself imply a hereditary basis. According to the Indian theory of rebirth, which the Gita recognizes, a man's inborn nature and course of life are essentially determined by his own past lives. are the self-development already effected by his past actions and mental and spiritual evolution, and cannot depend solely on the material factor of his ancestry, parentage, physical birth, which can only be of subordinate moment. One effective sign, perhaps, but not the dominant principle. The word sahaja means that which is born with us, whatever is natural, inborn, innate. Its equivalent in all other passages is svabhavaja, born from svabhava, our own nature. The work or function of a man is determined by his qualities, karma, is determined by guna. It is the work born of his svabhava, svabhavajam karma, and regulated by his svabhava, svabhava niyatam karma. We just mentioned, we met this in the previous shloka. This emphasis on an inequality in spirit, which finds expression in work, function, and action, is the whole sense of Gita's idea of karma. And from this emphasis on the inner truth and not on the outer form arises a spiritual significance and power which the Gita assigns to the following of Svadharma. That is the really important bearing of the passage. It is true that in this birth men fall very largely into one of four types. It is true. The man of knowledge, the man of power, the productive vital man, the man of rude labor and service. There are not fundamental divisions, but stages of self-development in our manhood. There is always in human nature something of all these four personalities developed or undeveloped, wide or narrow, suppressed or rising to the surface. But in most men, one or the other tends to predominate and seems to take up sometimes the whole space of action in the nature. And in any society we should have all four types. Even, for example, if we could create a purely productive and commercial society, such as modern times have attempted, or for that matter, a Shudra society of labor, of the proletariat, such as attracts the most modern mind and is now being attempted in one part of Europe and advocated in others, that is socialism, communism, Stalinism, Leninism, Mao Tse-tunism, and so on. There are so many Pol Potisms, there are so many forms of these distortions, of suppression of the individual. There would still be the thinkers moved to find the law and truth and guiding rule of the whole matter. Even in proletariat, we had some thinkers. The captains and the leaders of industry would make all this productive activity an excuse for the satisfaction of their need and adventure, and battle and leadership and dominance, military, and many typical, purely productive, wealth-getting men, the average worker is satisfied with a modicum, what is it? Of labor and reward of their labor. Proletariat, basically, working class. But these are quite outward things. And if that where all this economy of human type would have no spiritual significance, or it would mean at most, as has been sometimes held in India, that we have to go through these stages of development in our births, for we must perforce proceed progressively through the tamasic, rajaso-tamasic, the rajasic, rajaso-sattvic, to sattvic nature. So these are the grades, varnas are the grades of our growth in nature. Ascend and fixed ourselves in an inner Brahminhood, Brahmanya, and then seek salvation from that basis. But in that case, there would be no logical room for the Gita's assertion that even the Shudra or Chandala, outcast, can, by turning his life Godwards, climb straight to spiritual liberty and perfection, which Gita proclaims. The fundamental truth is not, don't know what it is, towards things, is not, there's a misprint, cannot guess. Maybe you can guess, you're English. The fundamental truth is not feels outward things. Yeah?
I think it might be the fundamental truth is not towards outward, not the outward thing.
Yeah, feels cannot be because his is not.
Not this outward thing.
Oh, that's it. This outward thing.
This, is not this outward thing, but a force of our inner being in movement, the truth of the fourfold active power of the spiritual nature. Each jiva possesses in his spiritual nature these four sides. Is a soul of knowledge, a soul of strength and of power, a soul of mutuality and interchange, of delight, bhakti, a soul of works and service. But one side or other, okay, we read till the end, predominates in the action, the expressive spirit, and tinges the dealings of the soul with its embodied nature. It leads and gives its stamp to the other power and uses them for the principal strain of action, tendency, experience. The svabhava then follows, not crudely and rigidly, as put in the social demarcation, but subtly and flexibly the law of this strain, and develops, in developing it, the other three powers. It's more complex than we think. So it takes the challenge and the kind of the circumstances created for this, but it is dealing with them, as it were. It doesn't have to have a total match with its inner needs, outer circumstances. Circumstances can bend, can be imperfect, but the inner work on them will start bringing other powers into action if we follow svabhava. The svabhava then follows not crudely and rigidly as put in the social demarcation, but subtly and flexibly the law of this strain, and develops in developing it the other three powers. Thus the pursuit of the impulse of works and service rightly done develops knowledge, increases power, trains closeness and balance of mutuality, and skill and order of relation. Each front of the fourfold Godhead moves through the enlargement of its own dominant principle of nature and enrichment by the other three towards a total perfection. That's why we have to follow Swabhava, because it is fourfold, it is Chaturvarnya already. Even though it takes that particular form of development, it will bring others into action. This development undergoes the law of three gunas. There is possible a tamasic, rajasic way of following them, or following even the dharma of the soul of knowledge, a brute tamasic and high sattvic way of following the dharma of power, a forceful rajasic or a beautiful and noble sattvic way of following the dharma of works and service. All the varieties are possible. One can be Brahmin in service and servant in knowledge. One can be anything you can imagine. That's why we have so many varieties of teachers in the school. To arrive at sattvic way of the inner individual Svadharma and of the works to which it moves us on the ways of life is a preliminary condition of perfection. That's why. And it may be noted that the inner Svadharma is not bound to any outward social or other form of action, occupation or function. The soul of works that is satisfied to serve, or that element in us can, for example, make the life of the pursuit of knowledge the life of struggle and power, or the life of mutuality, production and interchange, a means of satisfying its divine impulse to labor and to serve. And in the end, to arrive at the divinest figure and the most dynamic soul power of this fourfold activity is a wide doorway to swiftest and largest reality of the most high spiritual perfection. This we can do if we turn the action of the Svadharma into a worship of the inner Godhead, the universal spirit, the transcendent Purushottama, and eventually surrender the whole action into his hands, Mayi Sanyasa Karmani. Then, as we get beyond the limitation of three gunas, so also do we get beyond the division of the fourfold law and beyond the limitation of all distinctive dharmas. Sarva dharman parityajya. This would be the final statement of the chapter 18. The spirit takes up the individual into the universal svabhava, perfects and unifies the fourfold soul of nature in us, and does its self-determined works according to the divine will and the accomplished power of the Godhead in the creature. So there will be no more divisions. There will be unified immortal being. Okay, I will stop here. We have so much reading, so sorry. But these are Sri Aurobindo's words, though with misprints here and there, but still they are so powerful and so illuminating, so we need to dwell with them a bit. He gives us a deeper sense, and deeper understanding of what Gita wants to say, because it's hiding in the words. It's not so clear, hidden in the words. All right, if you have something to say, to share, please go ahead. We're slowly coming to the end of our Gita studies. Yeah?
It's very,
700 shlokas. Yes, yes.
I was just going to say, it's very reassuring that if we follow our own nature, we will ultimately arrive at our goal. And Sri Aurobindo seems to reassure us of that in various ways in his descriptions of these passages.
In mother's words, be sincere. That means be yourself, and everything else will come on the way.
So true.
Yeah, it's truly amazing where she grew up with no background in the Bhagavad Gita. She'd read, I think, a poor translation when she came to Oroville or Pondicherry, excuse me, in 1914. But she certainly absorbed and probably radiated even before hearing it from Sri Aurobindo, this whole philosophy of following one's.
Yeah, we know that. Yes, absolutely. She was. She knew about the Gita. She found that French translation there, and the person who was
Sure.
coming
And
to her,
and that's kind of a cliche in it.
Oh, your voice is breaking. Sorry, I interrupted you. I thought you stopped.
Well, I got a little notice that my internet connection is unstable, so I had stopped. But go ahead and speak. I was basically through. So wherever I ended, wherever what you heard ended probably doesn't matter. So just continue with what you had to say.
No, you said that mother followed this Gita before, and she came with already fully. Sri Aurobindo says she was totally formed as an occultist, and in every way, in every way, she was much more accomplished. Yes.
Yeah, much more accomplished than the many yogis who'd spent how many lifetimes, who knows, pursuing a specific path. She just had her own path, or the master she needed along the way, beginning with very high masters as a tiny little child. She just was able to communicate with them telepathically, or however you want to describe it, in her dreams, in her visions, and had incredible instruction.
Right. By the way, we are nearing her birthday, so.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I just like to say that through all of this, in order to know one's natural way, one would have to have the opening of the true self or the psychic being within to truly know what one's natural way is. Is that not true?
True, absolutely.
Yes.
And at the same time, this claim of opening psychic being, which I hear very often from the followers of integral yoga, is a little bit, how to say, becoming a cliche of some kind.
Yes.
The real psychic opening is a very rare thing.
Yes.
It happens once in, I don't know, million cases, So there are only few people whom I know who had that opened, and they are all around the mother and Sri Aurobindo,
Yes.
and even Amal Kiran, who had this open, for him, who was always with Sri Aurobindo and the mother was pulling it with force, for the whole day. She made for him this thing, Pavitra was the other one who had that opening, most probably. Those 10 pages are torn out from his diary, where that had to happen in his meditation with the mother. And so it's not an kind of ordinary thing. But there are influences of the psychic over on our vital, on our mind. These kind of to be sincere means to build bridge, to feel the presence, the inner presence. Not doesn't mean that psychic has to be totally open. I don't think it is an easy task to open the psychic, and at least I don't know anyone who has it. And those who claim it, really, I doubt them.
Well, I think there are those who are absolutely tuned into the psychic at times, but not all the time.
Oh yeah, that happens.
Yeah, yeah,
And we
yeah.
remember those moments. They are the most precious moments of our life. Yes, we orient ourselves towards them and so on. Yes, this happens. This happens quite a lot. But
Mhm.
to have totally in front the psychic being who leads your vital, mental, and physical nature, it's
Yeah.
psychic transformation, as Sri Aurobindo calls, is quite a rare thing
Yes,
and precious.
I'm sure it is.
And when we know this, we don't claim, yeah? We rather not, his mother says, when psychic is born, it's like chicken born from the egg. It's totally a new world. It's the world which we don't even know about.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
those who are born in the psychic sense, they know that they have it. You don't need to
Mhm.
doubt it, whether it was psychic or maybe it was something else. If you have that doubt, then definitely it's far away from the psychic.
Fortunately, that until that happens, we have the influences of higher planes through the subliminal consciousness. And this is active really quite wonderfully. Even it's active, I think, primarily in sleep, but also in the daytime, because Sri Aurobindo gives this beautiful analogy of the stars being present, even though we don't see them in the daytime. That he compares that, he makes this analogy with the psychic, that it's constantly active. I mean, with the subliminal, sorry, that it's constantly active, and it reaches to higher planes of consciousness and informs our thoughts and actions in subtle ways. So until we have the psychic transformation, we can still, through our aspiration and offering, have these other aspects of or possibilities for growth and change of consciousness.
Absolutely. And they are more even easier for us, preferable to us. Those are, again, our higher mind, or higher thoughts, or philosophy, or religious forms of spirituality, or whatever we do. Yes, or samadhi, nirvana, silencing the mind, meditations, all concentration. All these are the tools available to us. Long before psychic is in front. Yes. We can use those tools, and we have much to do, actually.
Well, Mother speaks of the reversal of consciousness. And my understanding of that is when one really starts to live in the higher mind, or the intuitive mind, or the overmind, or even I guess would even be the super mind after so much time, instead of living in the gunas, correct?
Um, well, yeah, I do not know where you are heading at. What is your
Well, I mean, the gunas would have
presupposition?
to be would be so transformed mentally that they would mean a whole different they would give a whole different experience than they give to someone who has not had this reversal.
Oh,
We'd still be living on earth, but we would have divine mind, we'll call it the divine mind, instead of the regular mind aimed with or in the gunas, the regular gunas.
Yes, absolutely. We are actually, our group, for example, we are already reversed.
Yes.
We cannot
Yeah.
go back. We cannot go back to normal life and pretend that nothing exists and then only this, chewing happiness and some kind of happiness of the outer being is the whole thing. We can't.
Yeah, we
if
can't.
you want, yeah. Even if you try to do it, it will not happen because the reversal already took place in your mind, in your vital. All those experiences you had, all those aspirations, all those
Yes.
grace you received, revelations, they will not, they were real to you. So
Yes.
the reversal takes place. The final reversal is that, well, of course, when the psychic is in front, we are safe, safe from falling into the, how to say, into the experimentation with the darkness, so to say. Because for the spiritual power from above, everything is the divine in a way. It does not do this kind of selection. This is good, this is bad. It doesn't do that. It spiritually, it embraces everything, finds its place, its right place, in its right time, and that's how it acts. Yeah. For the psychic, it's not like that. Psychic is very, how to say, very choosy, very fussy. It cannot take anything but the divine.
Right.
So if it is not totally divine transformed thing, it will not accept it. It will reject it. It has a power of rejection. Whereas the
Yes.
spiritual does not have that power of rejection. And here, many spiritual personalities, if you see them in India and in the world, they fall into the lap of that ignorance very easily, and desire and temptations, because the psychic is not there. They're spiritual, but psychic is not there, so they will fall into the lap of the experimenting with lower nature and so on. You see it throughout. All these great kind of sadhus, yogis, babas, they have here or there some problems with lower nature. Sannyasis, you remember how it was the whole story in the evening talks, where one sannyasi came with prostitute to the ashram of Ramakrishna.
Mm.
He lived with a, I do not know how to call prostitute otherwise, concubine or something.
Concubine.
Yeah. So he lived with one woman who was kind of serving those needs, and came to the ashram of Ramakrishna. And Ramakrishna was furious. And he said to him, "Why you're so angry? I am Brahman, she's Brahman, you're Brahman. Everything is Brahman. This is spiritual look. Justification of everything. Everything has its own place, its own right." And Ramakrishna answered to him, I spit on your Vedanta. This Vedanta, he spit on. Yeah? So what? And then they brought this to Sri Aurobindo and asked his opinion. And he said, yes, Sannyasi was right. Everything is Brahman. Why? He was totally right. But Ramakrishna was looking at it from the different point, from the psychic point. And when you look from that point, you can't take it, you can't accept it and say that everything is Brahman. Psychic has that distinction, that power to choose, reject, whereas that spiritual power doesn't have.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we need both. We need to accept everything as the divine. We definitely need. And we need to accept nothing but the divine at the same time. These are two powers of integral yoga.
Very interesting, yes.
And one is not enough. Neither spiritual power is enough, nor psychic is enough. Psychic is better because it gives security, it gives the way, the path, the rejection. But Sri Aurobindo in Life Divine, if you remember, in the later times, in 40s, started to write something on it. And I remember those passages long ago, I studied them, that he says the psychic was too long among human beings and started to have these, human kind of preferences. And it needs the support of a vaster consciousness from above, of the spiritual. These two are going together. This is the two beloved ones. Yes, so they have to go together.
Mhm.
It's the same with psychedelic drugs, like so many in the West use that for getting those experiences of the samadhi and all that. But I guess the psyche couldn't,
Absolutely.
because it can take you in the vital worlds.
Absolutely, you are so right. It is that psychic discernment which would not permit usage of drugs. Absolutely. That's why I was never attracted to drugs. Never. Even my friends and everyone in the army, everybody used drugs, especially in Afghanistan. So Afghanistan is full of drugs. And I could not,
Yeah.
it's not attracting me at all. That state of consciousness is like bewildering you, even if you have some kind of experiences, but they are not real. They are not real. Yeah. It's like, what's the point of having something like an illusion and be happy with the illusion? Something in you does not accept this, it doesn't like it. Simply, not even accepting, doesn't like it. And many sadhus in India, and the India is quite based on many drugs, by the way. Though we kind of worship those sadhus and babas, but they are on drugs, many of them. So it's all very questionable and tricky. Many of those. I don't say all, I say many. It's unpleasant kind of thing to recognize that people are using it for normal things. It's very good for experimenting with nature, with lower nature, with vital nature. Yes, you can have some siddhis, you can have some, forms of power over other people, but that is not the realization of the divine. It's on the same level of Prakriti. All right, we can stop here for today and start with this new, towards the supreme secret. This will be the last portion of chapter 18. I close with mantra. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. And there is some secret connection of psychic and the physical body, which spiritual neglects, overlooks, looks at it as Maya, whereas the psychic wants the body to be the divine. There is some kind of intrinsic connection. Something is there mysteriously linked.
It's the aspiration, I think. It's the aspiration that you can be felt throughout the body. The body can aspire just like the psychic being can. I mean, because of the cells. That's what Mother said, isn't it? Because the cells have their own aspiration.
They are working for the same purpose, both of them, psychic and the body. They want to embody the divine, both. They have the same
Yes.
task, as it were. They're linked in this work. we have to still kind of, recognize that connection.
Mhm.
Great. All right. See you then. Namaste.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Namaste.